Okay.
All right, good evening, everybody. With it just being after 6 o'clock on Thursday, May 27, 2021, I will call this meeting of the Bartlett School Building Committee to order. Just as a reminder, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker signed an executive order relieving government boards and committees from compliance with certain open meeting law requirements. Under the order, public bodies may hold meetings without providing physical public access, so long as the public has access to deliberations through alternative means. In this case, the alternative means we are utilizing is the Zoom video conferencing platform. In addition, public bodies may allow for remote participation in meetings by all members, including the chair, with no members being physically present at the meeting location. Hope everybody had a wonderful day. First item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from April 15, 2021. Are there any questions or comments regarding the minutes that were provided to us? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the April 15, 2021 minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mr. Young. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the committee. Mrs. Blythe?
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the OPM report. Good evening, Mr. Guyette.
Good evening. And tonight's OPM report will be given by John Bates. Go ahead, John.
Greetings, committee. Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Absolutely.
Host disabled participant screen sharing. That's unfortunate.
All set.
Okay. All right, hopefully you can now see my screen. And we should be looking at the progress report as of April 30th. And starting in the top right, as we know, the total project budget is $1 million. The amount encumbered this reporting period was $0. The total amount encumbered to date is $970.49. Total project invoices received to date is $182,288. We're moving down under the OPM category. The original contract amount has not changed, it's still $234,500. Total invoices paid to date is $40,408. The invoices received this reporting period, $55,15. And the contract amount remaining is $188,577. And then under designer, similarly, the contract amount as of this period has not changed, still $665. Invoices paid to date is $110,625. Contract amount remaining is $554,375. And then in regards to the schedule, the next major milestone that we're currently tracking is the PSR submission. That's on July 7th. And that's it for the OPM report review. Any questions?
Any question for Mr. Bates? Hearing none, short, sweet, and effective. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the designer report. Good evening, Mr. Kovacs.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Excellent. Yep, just kind of going over the activities that we've been doing. We've had our geotechnical engineer kind of map out where they needed some borings. This is an item that was discussed back in January, and now is the time to get out there. And that's been coordinated with DPW and DigSafe, and they're starting work, and they're going to create a report and understand the soil conditions. And that's not only for getting a gradient of the soil for the stormwater, but it also helps if there's any new construction work and the capacity, bearing capacity of the soil. So we'll have a report, preliminary updates with boring logs in about 2 weeks, and then a report in about 3.5 weeks with that. So that's kind of with the consultant team. Our landscape architects and civil engineers are starting to look at some design detail around the building when it comes to drop-offs and pickups and outdoor learning space. So at the next meeting, we'll have updates on the landscape as it kind of pertains to the various options. And we've been with the educational visioning team for just kind of a brief overview. And I think the main goal, we're preparing for one MSBA comments that we have yet to receive, at least of today, from the PDP report. We hope to receive those. And as John said, we go into submitting the PSR report July 7th. So we'd like to get those comments so we can react to them and incorporate them as part of the project. On the design side, we're also refining the plan so we can do another round of cost estimating that's required by the MSBA. So we'll update the plans, let them know majority of the walls that are staying versus walls that are being removed for the various options, and that will help them kind of hone into their overall cost takeoffs. And I think the next item leads us to the evaluation process for the various options. And I know Monique had forwarded a matrix that we commonly use, and it's just a tool. It's not the deciding factor on what options preferred. That was just forwarded today. And if I could share my screen, I could give you an idea what that looks like. And we could have a discussion about that. But it's really about making the matrix and the criteria the school building committee's own. And so, you know, over the next couple of weeks, if you give us items you'd like to incorporate into that, we can do so. And at the next SBC meeting, we can kind of go live and record some results from the various members. But I will share that with you.
Can I interrupt you for one
Yep.
second, just for clarification? So are you going to ask us between now and our next meeting to complete this evaluation, or will that be discussed at our next meeting?
It'd kind of be up to you. I'd rather get what's important to you first. So there was two documents. One is this matrix, and then the other one was just other consideration we've seen on other projects. I think with the time, with the June 17th, it could be a good idea if maybe some folks are able to complete portions of it, and we can update it over the next couple of weeks if we get input. But we've done it both ways. We've done it just live kind of in the meeting, and we've done it kind of as homework.
So may I propose, because it makes a difference, honestly, to me, how I
Yeah, sure.
pay attention to your presentation. May I propose, unless the committee objects, that if you have time and if you feel comfortable with the tools that are presented, that you try to provide your input prior to probably a week before our next meeting. I would suggest submitting any input to Mrs. Perangeli, and then she can forward it to the appropriate architects and project management staff. Does that sound like a fair proposal for the members?
I think that's fair. Absolutely.
And again, if you don't feel comfortable with it, we can obviously get your input live, but I think the more we have, the more input we can get prior to the meeting, it makes it easier to finalize the document.
Yeah, well said. I think that's probably the right path to do that. And over the next, I would say, week, if there's any criteria that anybody would like to see as part of this chart, if they could email maybe through Ken, if you want to collect any responses, if there's any criteria they want to see this chart expanded to, it should go to Colliers, and we can update the chart.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I'll just give you a brief overview. So between Flansburgh and Colliers, we both use similar charts. The criteria is noted on the right-hand column, and it's educational opportunity that we have here. We have project
Hey, Ken?
cost. Yep.
And all we can see is your folder screen.
Oh, all right. Let me stop that again. Sorry.
While you're doing that, Mr. Kovacs, just for the record, I believe Mrs. Contos joined us at approximately 6:10.
Can you see it now, Ken?
No.
No, it's
Yeah.
still showing your folder screen.
All right, let me try something different here.
There you go.
See now? Oh, good.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I thought you guys had seen it up on the screen. So there's the 5 base options running along the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The evaluation criteria is on the left-hand column, and that has various criteria. Again, we just populated things we commonly see in these projects. So educational visioning and opportunity, project cost. Again, this is subject to be refined as we go into the next phase. Disruption during construction, whether it's new construction, or addition, renovation, they all have different aspects. Operational efficiency, after hours use, community use, how they're being separated, safety, access, site design, aesthetics, flexibility in the future, and then any sustainability goals here. Now this is just 8. I also sent a Word document that had other items. You can go through that, and if there's anything that you feel is important, let's incorporate it. If you can come up with something on your own that we're not thinking of, let's get that in there. So the goal is to make it unique to this project. And then across that, it's rated all options. Option 1 is the repair option. Option 2 is the full renovation without any demolition. And then we get into 3 and 4, which meet the project square footage at 156. And then we have new construction at the end. And they're all kind of weighted to the different criteria. Actually, Ken, do you want to explain that weighting factor? Because I thought that was kind of unique with your form.
Yeah, sure. So we also want to find out if the committee wishes to weigh any of the valuation criteria more for some and less for others. In this particular example that Kent has here, you can see where the educational opportunities are weighted the highest, as most districts tend to lean, with project cost and construction impact coming in really close as a close second. So it's just another way again of being able to determine what the overall best option is, and that weighting certainly helps with determining those factors as well.
So again, this is a tool. It's not the ultimate deciding factor, but it'll see where a majority of the committee is feeling what's important and what they feel is probably the strongest candidate. And it's also an item that typically the MSBA likes to see, that this was a conversation we had and that there's something kind of connected to some dialogue. Does anybody have any comments or want me to go into any more detail?
I have a quick question. So
Yes.
number 2, project cost, that's the full project cost, I believe, right? Is there
That's
any
the-
way to guesstimate how much the local option cost would be? Like, I know it's kind of tough to say what MSBA may or may not cover, but at least for me, that makes a big
Yeah.
difference.
So that's on this one, because we haven't determined, that's the construction cost. So the project cost we have noted to be determined on that.
Yep.
And at this time, we wouldn't be able to tell you what the MSBA would reimburse for any of these options.
Right.
That's a conversation that they really hold to the end of the process. They have, some of their ground rules on what's capped and what's not, but it would be very hard to factor that in these decisions.
Yeah, no, I understand. I guess, if the local amount is about the same, I'd go for a brand new building, but I guess it's hard to determine that at this stage.
But Kent, is it fair to say that whatever the net reimbursement percentage ends up being, which we know it's going to be less obviously than the roughly 76% because of the number of pupils issue, would it be fair to say that that percentage would be roughly the same for each option, or will that net percentage change for each option?
I think the baseline would be, and Ken, jump in, if the baseline would be MSBA caps all the projects at $333 a square foot. So that would be one factor that you would kind of weigh in to hone into what you're looking at. So with the repair, I can't tell you if they would even support it. So it's hard to give a factor on that. But with the other options, primarily, 2 through 5, the building would be capped at 333 a square foot. All buildings are built for more than that, so maybe I'm not answering exactly. I don't have a factor
Yeah,
that they would kind of hone into.
to answer your question, I think, Dave, there would be differences between the 4 other options. They'd be probably small differences, but there would be differences because the eligible versus ineligible will change in the different options as we start going through it, and that will affect your bottom line reimbursement, your effective reimbursement.
I understand that, but I do agree with Mr. Willitson in that there's a balance, obviously, between wanting to do what is in the best interest of the students of Webster with also wanting to identify or have a sense of what the estimated cost is going to be to the town. Because from my perspective, again, all of us who are voting members on this committee, we're members of the committee, we're also taxpayers. So I believe in order, from my perspective, to make an assessment, I would want to have at least, I know these are not final numbers, but some type of estimate to say, okay, we're estimating, even if it's a range between X number of dollars to this number of dollars, or X percentage to this percentage per option, we think is roughly what the reimbursed amount will be.
Right. Well, we know for a fact, just based on, again, the caps, that the renovation options, you're going to get the greater return on investment. Because when you look at the big cost of a 71.6 versus 87, again, they're all equally capped at 333 a square foot. And the renovation options actually have an additional incentive up to 5%, I believe, Ken, for reimbursement. So the more renovation, the greater reimbursement. And you're already really high at 76. And Ken, does the
We'll probably cap
76?
out at 80, correct?
Well, yeah, so you got 2% for green,
Yep, it caps out at 80.
probably a
And
high 1.8 for maintenance. I'm not sure what that criteria came back at.
yeah, and you definitely get more, you're going to end up getting more bang for the buck of the 333 a square foot, just intuitively, between a renovation and a new construction.
Just when you see the bare cost right there, because
Yeah.
we're looking at $16 million swing above, say, option 3.
But the unfortunate part about, the fortunate and unfortunate part, depending on how you look at it, why the MSBA does it this way, is they don't talk about reimbursement, as Kent said, until after the preferred option has been determined. They want the district to make the determination on the right project that will support the educational program based on the total project cost and the construction cost and all these other criteria. So typically the way we've seen it happen before is Cape Cod Tech, for example, the total project cost came in very, very closely between the renovation and the new construction, just because of some of the additional work we had to do in the existing building to get that to work out. So when the committee looked at it, it made more sense for them to go with new construction versus the renovation, just based on a purely project cost, regardless of the reimbursement, purely on a total project cost. And that's how the MSBA wants these to be weighed.
And Ken, there's a difference between the construction cost that we're seeing there and the total project cost, correct?
That's correct. So typically, I mean, rule of thumb, this is back to the napkin discussion, is typically what happens is at the end of the day, your soft cost versus hard cost, your construction, which is hard cost, versus your soft cost, which is all the other FF&E and fees and testing and things of that nature, ends up being about a 75-25 split. So 75% hard costs, 25% soft costs typically make up the total project cost. That's still yet to be determined. That's why we don't put that there, but that's just a general back of the napkin rule of thumb.
So what you're saying is roughly on option 2 as an example, we would have to add 25% of 76 million to the total cost of the project?
You would actually have to add 33% to that to get the total project, because then 33% of that would tie onto that 76, and then it would become 25% would.
Oh, okay.
Cost.
I understand what the MSBA wants us to do. It's just really hard from my perspective. And again, we all want to do what is in the best interest of the kids and the students of Webster. But there's significant dollar cost differences between some of these options. And if we're talking about a basic renovation of 50, we're almost, 65 million, adding the soft costs, and we're going to get, and I'm making these numbers up, we're going to get a net reimbursement of roughly 60 to 65% on that. And then we jump to option 3, where you're looking at 14, I don't know, almost $90 million. And we're only going to get a 50% net reimbursement on that because of the issue with the number of students and all the square footage that you went through a couple meetings ago.
But the risk is option 1 won't be supported by the MSBA. And that would be your risk there. Because from our research, they haven't supported a repair only option.
We've never seen them support and participate in the base.
That's
repair
why they
code
push the
upgrade.
educational plan so much, and that's part of the process. I think they would say if you wanted to do the repair only, that wouldn't be part of this process. It's not like they won't do it, but we haven't seen it done before, and I don't know if they'll go on record saying that either.
Yeah, I don't know how they would if it doesn't address the educational
So that puts you into
opportunities.
the 2, 3, 4s and 5s, and we know that the renos are going to get a greater bang for your buck than the new construction, just based on that 333 a square foot. It's
Okay.
really that's like the only ground rule they give you is the 333 a square foot. And even then you don't know what they're going to say is eligible and ineligible, but that would give you a good base to know. If they supported 156,000 square feet of the program, which they're not, because they're going to exclude the gym and the auditorium and probably some other requests, and you times that by 333, that's going to give you your range. That's just kind of hypothetically speaking. So you can see that right there, the cost to the town is going to be much greater on new construction than one of the reno options.
Correct.
I wish I could tell you what the reimbursement would be,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
they don't even, and this is, I'm sure this meeting is going to be viewed by the MSBA, and that's okay because it's part of the process. It's the end of schematic design when you submit it and they're going through the project budget and they bring you into the MSBA. That's when they finally tell you what they're supporting and what they're not supporting. It's really, in fairness to them, it's kind of dragged out a little bit because they need to judge all the other projects that they have. And they'll give you some hints here and there when we get our comments back from PDP, if they're going to support, a lot of the special education spaces that were submitted, or some of the general classrooms and the science labs that were submitted that were beyond the template. So you'll get a little hint of some spaces that they'll support leading up to that base number. But really, it's not until the end when you know that for sure.
You answered all my questions. Thanks.
So I think everybody has this form. I think the next step would be, as a bit of homework over the next week, if there's any criteria you want to add to this, that would be helpful. And then there's kind of the weighted factor component, of the chart that we'd want to finalize.
So why don't we set a deadline for, and I know it's obviously we have Memorial Day coming up on Monday, but why don't we set a deadline for June 7th? If anybody wants to add additional criteria, then please have that information submitted to Mo, who will share it with everybody who needs to have it by June 7th. In addition to, if you want to change any of the proposed multipliers or not use multipliers at all, please have your opinion submitted by the 7th so that the form can be amended. And then if it does change, get it out to everybody so we can have people work on it prior to the next meeting. Because I just realized we lost a week, didn't we? This is a week later than normal.
Correct. Yep.
Why don't you have any input in by Thursday, a week from today, by the 3rd? So if we don't receive any proposed changes to this form by a week from today, we'll make the assumption that the members are good with this form and we will use this form. And then ideally, if folks want to complete the form, please have it submitted by the 10th. And that will give folks a week to put everything together, and whatever information they have, put it into a working, an initial working document that we can go over on the 17th. Does that sound fair to everybody on the meeting?
Yes.
That's good.
In the world of Zoom, silence is agreement, correct?
Or a sign of technical problems.
That's a good point, Mrs. Contos. Kent, did you have anything? I know there was another document that was shared. Did you have anything else you wanted to go over?
I think the other document's pretty self-explanatory. It just has about 20 different line items of things you may consider to put into the list. But I do just want to take a second with this list. There's some footnotes that are within each of these, and I just want to have everybody have a general understanding on the base repair. Although there's plenty of space, does it meet the educational vision? Not necessarily with the way it's been outlined, and it doesn't comply with the MSBA template. So that's what I'm noting here, because it doesn't, and that's how it's been submitted to the MSBA already. In option 2, that's still the full-size building. It fits all the spaces within the MSBA template, but it still has that excess space. And the footnote there is it's difficult with the planning and flexibility to build around undefined space. And that's all that footnote means. And then when we get into 3, 4, and 5, they're all more conducive to kind of receiving the educational plan, and it aligns with the educational MSBA template. The project cost is what it is right there. When it comes to construction, we have slides for the community forum, and pretty much we're looking at this as 10 months for each of the wings. So really a 28 to 30 month construction. And we looked at the renovations, and utilizing portables will be necessary. And we're calculating around 10 classrooms for that. So that's going to be an additional cost for each of the renovation projects, because you're not going to be able to move all the students within the various wings for, I would say, a straightforward construction project. We at least need to get some of the students out of those wings in order to have a very clean, efficient process. And then you'll see on new construction, obviously it's out in the field, it gets built, and then the existing Bartlett would come down and new fields built. So when you look at disruption, new construction is the least. Doesn't make it the preferred option, but with that criteria, that's what that means. When it comes to efficiency and we start looking at life cycle costs, obviously a repair only that's not going beyond the base code is not going to be as efficient and designed similar to other MSBA schools coming out now. So that's the only option that just meets a minimum for thermal quality. And as far as comfort goes, because it's heating and ventilation only. And then 2, 3, 4, and 5 obviously would have an enhanced envelope with the wall insulation and thicker insulation at the roof, and you have flexibility with your mechanical systems. Locking off for the community, it's kind of what you have now, so there's no change. And then in option 2, the cafeteria is where it currently is, and if you want to lock that off, that might be more difficult, where the other options are grouped with the gym and the auditorium. That's all that note means for supervision. And then when it comes to site design, that's what the next one for safety, access, traffic. We're not changing site circulation, drop-offs, very light touch on the site for the repair only, but we are going into an overall full site design package with the remaining options. And then aesthetics, there's no change obviously to the repair, minimal to option 2, and a few opportunities on 3 and 4. And then of course, new construction, it's all new facades. So you can have more flexibility with how the building looks and opportunities with how it fits into the environment. Now, sustainability, you are repairing it, making some systems slightly greener, but overall no change, where the other options you're able to improve the envelope and focus more on the MEP systems, and then create more natural light into spaces as well as outdoor connections. So if you're looking at perhaps reducing carbon, and I know you're a green community, the other options might provide the opportunity to do that versus a boiler repair and a air handler job that would come with the baseline code compliant option 1. So I just wanted to take a minute to explain some of these footnotes when you're going through the matrix. Okay. And that's it for me for the update.
So just to summarize, the Word document is all the potential categories that you guys have, in your experience, other committees have considered adding to this process. The
Correct.
Excel document is obviously what is proposed. And once we get to a final document, just so I want to make sure everyone understands, where it says score, we would rank each criteria on what we think is the 1 to 5, 5 being the best, correct?
Correct.
Out of the 5 criteria, out of the 5 options, I'm sorry, we're ranking each criteria for that, each option for that criteria, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which one we think is going to meet that criteria the best? Correct?
Correct.
And then the way the formulas are designed in the spreadsheet, we just put our score, it magically calculates everything for you. And hopefully if we can get that completed a week before our next meeting, we email it to Mrs. Perangeli, and then we'll begin to put together a final document with everybody's score.
Correct. Yeah, just as an example, yeah, it'll populate out.
Oh.
So then you'll have just a general idea at the end.
Very nice.
Okay.
Are there any questions or comments from the committee regarding not only Ken's presentation, I'm sorry, Kent, of course, we had to get 2 professionals that are 1 letter apart. Kent's presentation and what we are hoping to accomplish within the next 2 weeks.
I think it's clear.
All righty. Hearing none, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the warrant. We have a proposed warrant in the dollar amount of $6,558.75. That is management fees from Colliers. Are there any questions or comments regarding the warrant? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the warrant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There is a motion by Mrs. Blythe and a second by Mrs. Nieves. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I will poll the committee. Mrs. Blythe,
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Contos,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank
Our
you.
next meeting date is June 17th. And just a friendly reminder that in Mrs. Perangeli's original email from Monday, she did include the link. There's going to be a separate link for the community forum, which is scheduled to begin at 7 o'clock. I will do my best to attend. I just got home a second before this meeting, so hopefully all the members of the committee will be attending that. And I'm assuming Dr. Gogan or Mrs. Perangeli, you folks are handling intros and coordination, et cetera.
We are.
Lucian's all over it.
Perfect. I shouldn't have even doubted. I shouldn't have even asked the question.
Mhm.
Mr. Hurton, I'm tentative for the next meeting. I'm traveling that day, so I'm not sure if I will be able to be available to attend.
Okay. So
Okay.
again, Mrs. Contos, if you have any, please make sure you get your
I will.
spreadsheet because we want to make sure we get your input. Thank you.
I will.
And is there anything else, any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I want to thank everybody for your attendance this evening. Hopefully, Mr. Willitson, the right team is winning.
Unfortunately, no, but it's all
Ah.
good.
It's all about having fun, right?
Yeah.
I will entertain, I hope everybody enjoys a wonderful Memorial Day. It doesn't look like the weather's going to be that great, but obviously the reason for the holiday is to celebrate those who have served for our country. So I hope everybody has a nice day off and a nice weekend. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Motion made by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mrs. Contos. I will pull the committee. Mrs. Blythe,
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves,
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Contos,
yes.
and I vote yes. Again, thank you much. Thank you very much, everybody, and hopefully you'll be able to join us at 7 o'clock.
Thanks, everyone.